Welcome to Mind Tricks Radio, where we'll explore contemporary topics in psychology through interviewing creative and innovative thinkers in the field. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode of Mind Tricks, we're diving deep into the world of psychology with one of the most influential figures in the field, someone whose work has shaped our understanding of human behavior in profound and lasting ways. Our guest today is B.F. Skinner, a name that resonates through the halls of psychology departments worldwide. Skinner is renowned for his pioneering research in behaviorism, a school of thought that emphasizes the importance of observable behavior over internal mental states. His groundbreaking experiments with animals, particularly pigeons and rats, led to the development of the theory of operant conditioning. This theory has been instrumental in our understanding of how behavior is acquired and maintained through reinforcement and punishment. Skinner's contributions extend beyond the laboratory. He authored several seminal books, including The Behavior of Organisms, Walden Two, and Beyond Freedom and Dignity. These writings offer profound insights into human behavior and society. His work has had a lasting impact on various fields, including education, therapy, and even parenting, influencing techniques and practices that are still in use today. This episode is the second in a series of episodes where I utilize artificial intelligence in an effort to interview prominent contributors to the field of psychology who have passed away. Clearly, the interview is, well, fake, as my guests are no longer alive. The voices of my guests are artificial clones of their actual voices, and their responses have been generated through the use of AI. You might be interested to know that my voice, as well, is an AI-generated reproduction of my actual voice. Why not conduct this fabricated interview with my actual voice? Well, why not use an AI clone of myself in the spirit of the endeavor? I would be very interested to receive your feedback on what you think of this project, and any suggestions you may have for future interviews. Before we begin, I want to clarify that this is an AI-generated simulation of Dr. Skinner. This episode has been created using publicly available writings, lectures, and research, and is meant for educational and historical exploration only. There is no financial gain, sponsorship, or commercial intent associated with this project. The responses you hear are generated by AI models trained on Dr. Skinner's known work and do not represent an actual statement, endorsement, or official position from Dr. Skinner, their estate, family, or any affiliated institution. This is a speculative and academic recreation meant to celebrate and discuss Dr. Skinner's contributions to psychology. It should not be interpreted as an authentic interview or a literal reflection of their personal views. Dr. Skinner, welcome to Mind Tricks Radio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to speak with you about your life and career, and of course about your groundbreaking and influential work on radical behaviorism and operant conditioning. But first, as I like to do with my guests, I'd like to hear a bit about your background. What can you tell us about yourself?
Yes, of course, I'd be happy to. I was born in Susquehanna, Pennsylvania in 1904. I studied at Hamilton College and then went on to get my PhD at Harvard, where I later taught for most of my career. My interest in behaviorism started to take shape during my early years in academia, and from there I developed theories like operant conditioning and radical behaviorism that became central to my work.
What was it like for you growing up?
Well, the town I grew up in Pennsylvania was rather small, and I had a lot of freedom to explore and tinker.
You were a curious child?
Yes, very much so. I was always curious about how things worked. My father had a shed and workshop, and I spent a lot of time tinkering and making things.
What did your parents do?
My father was a lawyer, and mother was a housewife and homemaker.
Would you say your relationship with your parents helped nurture your interest in psychology and your career pursuits?
Oh, yes, I would say so, most certainly. I would say it was a quite warm and intellectually stimulating environment. My upbringing helped instill values of a strong work ethic, curiosity, and discipline.
Were they hard on you or demanding as parents?
No, not at all. I mean, I was sensitive at times if they were displeased with me for some reason. But generally, I really enjoyed my parents, and they were supportive of me.
What was it like growing up in a small town?
I really enjoyed it. I used to ramble through the beautiful wooded countryside. I liked playing games. I had a lot to do that kept me busy and my mind occupied.
I understand at one time, earlier in your life, you had aspirations around becoming a writer.
That's right. Even when I was as young as 10 years old, I was writing poems in college at Hamilton. I was very interested in writing. In fact, Early in my senior year, I had a chance to meet Robert Frost, and he asked me to send him some of my stories, which I did. And by that spring, he sent me a favorable response, which inspired me to continue pursuing writing as a career path.
So how'd things go with the writing?
Well, not so well. I took a year off after college to write, but I found I really had nothing much to say.
That's sort of funny because you've become such a prolific writer in your career as a psychologist.
Yes, I was a decent writer, but clearly it was only after delving into my work as a psychologist where I had a subject matter worthy of writing about.
I see. So your writing skills and interests were a natural extension of your career path as a psychologist.
Yes, right. I gave up on the writing early on and needed to figure out a different direction for myself.
So, moving on to your psychology career, how did you develop your interest in behaviorism?
Well, it was my time at Harvard during graduate school where I was exposed to works of the likes of Ivan Pavlov and John Watson, who were quite influential as the early theorists in behaviorism.
Who did you study with at Harvard?
I had a few notable mentors. One was William John Crozier, who was a prominent biologist. He emphasized rigorous scientific methodology and objective measurement, which greatly influenced my scientific approach to psychology. Then there was Edward Tolman, who worked on cognitive maps and purposive behaviorism, and Robert Yerkes, who studied animal behavior.
And of course, you work quite a bit with animals, mostly pigeons and rats. Is that correct?
Yes, animals have played a crucial role in the development of my theories in operant conditioning.
Dr. Skinner, let's talk a bit more about behaviorism. I know that behaviorism typically involves the study of observable behavior and the influence of the environment on behavior. Can you explain what is meant by radical behaviorism, which I believe is a term you use to describe your theories?
That's right. Earlier forms of behaviorism tended to focus solely on external stimuli and responses and paid no attention whatsoever on the internal experience of the individual.
Do you mean like with Ivan Pavlov and John Watson's work on classical conditioning?
Right. So, for example, Pavlov did his famous experiments with his dogs where he paired external neutral stimuli, like, say, the ringing of a bell with the presentation of another stimuli that was known to elicit a response. For example, when he presented the dogs with food, causing them to salivate, and then paired this event with the ringing of a bell. This created a conditioned response. That is, the dogs would salivate at the sound of a bell, even in the absence of food. You see, in these experiments, there was really no attention paid to the internal motivations or mechanisms causing the responses.
So, radical behaviorism goes beyond just the observable and delves into thoughts and feelings?
Well, yes, in a sense. Radical behaviorism goes beyond just studying observable behavior, so we are interested in the internal experience of the individual. But not in a mystical or touchy-feely sense of exploring the internal experience of people that you might see with other psychodynamically oriented theorists, like, say, Carl Jung or Fritz Perls.
Yeah, those psychologists and their schools of psychology are rooted in the internal experiences of people. Unconscious motivations or drives, repressed feelings, etc.
Right, but the problem with approaching thoughts and feelings in that way is they are not observable through experimentation. They are basically unprovable theories. In radical behaviorism, thoughts and feelings are treated as behaviors in and of themselves, stemming from actions of the brain and nervous system. The thoughts and feelings are easily inferred from observable behaviors stemming from reward and punishment. This perspective allows us to study and understand how these internal processes influence and are influenced by the external environment.
By external environment, I assume you mean the forces at play that might shape behavior through, say, rewards and punishment?
That's right, exactly.
What might some of these environmental forces be?
Well, it could be any system where principles of operant conditioning are applied. The educational system, work setting, the government, the family, any system where one's behavior is shaped through reward and punishment. Really, potentially any and all systems where humans interact with each other. These are primarily principles of operant conditioning, the cornerstone of my work.
Of course, you are well known for your research related to operant conditioning. I assume it was during your graduate work at Harvard where you began developing these theories.
Yes, I began experimenting with rats and pigeons. I created and developed what became known as the Skinner box, which was pivotal to my research. I found that I could control the environment and the consequences of animal behavior. I could observe how behaviors could be shaped, reinforced, and even extinguished. This led me to develop the principles of reinforcement, both positive and negative, and to explore how schedules of reinforcement affect learning and behavior over time.
Tell me a little more about the Skinner box. I assume this was a natural extension of your earlier childhood love of tinkering and making things.
Yes, no doubt it was.
How was the Skinner box constructed and what exactly did it do?
The Skinner box was an operant conditioning chamber. It was designed as a controlled environment to study how behavior is influenced by its consequences. It's a simple yet effective setup. It has a small chamber with levers or keys for animals like rats or pigeons to press. Inside, I could control what happened in response to their actions, whether it was delivering food, water, or even a mild stimulus. This allowed me to observe and measure how behaviors change based on reinforcement, whether positive like a food pellet or negative like stopping an aversive stimulus. Essentially, it was a tool that helped me uncover the principles of operant conditioning and its impact on learning and behavior.
So these were some of the pivotal experiments you did that helped develop your theories around schedules of reinforcement. How did you apply what you learned from the Skinner box about operant conditioning to human behavior?
Well, there is direct applicability, and I have written extensively on the topic. For example, I developed teaching machines for educational settings. In therapy with individuals, I have developed the use of operant conditioning principles for behavior modification. And even in organizational settings, the principles of operant conditioning have been used to improve performance and motivation.
Can you explain more about the use of a teaching machine in an educational setting?
The teaching machine was an innovation aimed at enhancing learning efficiency through programmed instruction. It allowed students to learn at their own pace by presenting them with small units of material and providing immediate feedback on their responses. This feedback was crucial. It reinforced correct answers and guided students to review and correct mistakes.
So the feedback was sort of seen as a reinforcer, whether the student got the item or question right or wrong. And this would then prompt what the student would do next.
Yes, that's right. Imagine the teaching machine presenting a question or problem, allowing the student to respond and then providing immediate feedback, whether through a light, a sound, or a written response. This process continued, adapting the difficulty based on the student's responses, ensuring mastery before moving on. The idea was to make learning more effective and enjoyable by individualizing the pace and content of instruction, which I believed could significantly improve educational outcomes. This concept influenced educational technology and personalized learning approaches that we see evolving today.
It sounds like many modern-day applications or programs students use for learning on computers.
Absolutely. Nowadays, teaching machines are computer programs and they have become quite sophisticated. They focus on personalized learning, give immediate feedback, and provide adaptive instructions based on performance. Even though they are sophisticated and complex, at the core they still rely on basic principles of operant condition: positive and negative reinforcement, rewards, and even punishment.
Let's also talk about how operant conditioning is applied to individual therapy. Would this fall into the category of behavioral modification?
Yes, it's often called behavior modification, especially when applied to individuals.
Obviously, operant conditioning and behavioral modification are often applied to the rearing of children. Do you have any thoughts based on your experiences applying behavioral principles to rearing your two daughters or counseling others in their child-rearing efforts?
Well, my own experiences with my daughters, Julie and Deborah, provided valuable insights. In our household, we tried to create an environment that was rich in positive reinforcement, ensuring that desired behaviors were consistently rewarded. This approach helped in promoting good habits and reducing unwanted behaviors. My wife, Yvonne, and I also believed in the importance of providing a nurturing and supportive environment where our daughters felt loved and secure. We tried to focus on principles of rewards rather than punishment as much as possible.
What else can you say, in general, about applying behavior modification to child rearing?
Well, one key principle I emphasize is the importance of immediate reinforcement. Children respond well when feedback is prompt, so it's important to make sure to acknowledge and reward positive behaviors as soon as they occurred. This could be anything from praise and affection to tangible rewards like extra playtime or a favorite treat.
I assume this is because you want to reinforce the idea that the feedback, or reinforcement, is directly tied to the behavior. I imagine that if there's a delay, the child might not make the connection.
That's right. It's what we call contiguity in reinforcement. If there is a significant delay, the connection between the behavior and the reinforcement may not be made, reducing the effectiveness of the reinforcement.
Anything else you can tell us about behaviorist principles in child rearing?
Sure, I found that setting clear expectations and consistently reinforcing those expectations were crucial. Children thrive when they understand what is expected of them and when they know that positive behaviors will be acknowledged. Consistency helps in building a predictable environment, which is essential for effective learning and behavior modification. I often stress the value of using reinforcement rather than punishment. While punishment might suppress undesirable behavior temporarily, it doesn't teach the child what to do instead. Reinforcement, on the other hand, encourages the repetition of positive behaviors. For example, instead of punishing a child for not doing homework, I would advise parents to reinforce the completion of homework by offering praise or a small reward. Shaping behavior through successive approximations can be particularly effective. This involves reinforcing behaviors that are progressively closer to the desired behavior. For instance, if a child is learning to clean their room, you might start by reinforcing them for putting away just one toy, then gradually increase the expectation until they can clean the entire room on their own.
I'm curious about the practice of token economies. This is a concept you introduced that has gained widespread use.
Yes, the token economy. This is one of the practical applications of operant conditioning that has proven quite effective in various settings. The basic idea is to use tokens as a form of secondary reinforcement. These tokens can be exchanged for primary reinforcers like food, privileges, or other rewards.
In what kind of settings can you apply a token economy?
Well, any setting in which you might want to reward a behavior with a secondary reinforcer. Initially, I implemented this system in psychiatric hospitals to encourage positive behaviors among patients, such as self-care and social interaction.
And what did you see in the psychiatric setting? How was it beneficial?
Oh, we observed some remarkable changes. Initially, many patients exhibited behaviors that were challenging to manage and did not engage in activities that could aid their recovery. Traditional methods weren't as effective in motivating them to participate in their treatment plans. With the introduction of the token economy, we saw a significant shift. Patients began to show more interest in activities that earned them tokens, such as attending therapy sessions, engaging in social interactions, and maintaining personal hygiene. The tokens, which could be exchanged for privileges or items they valued, provided immediate and tangible reinforcement for positive behaviors. One of the most notable outcomes was the improvement in patients' overall engagement and cooperation. The system helped to establish a clear structure and set of expectations which many patients found reassuring and motivating. As they experienced success and earned rewards, their self-esteem and sense of agency increased. This positive feedback loop was crucial in fostering a more therapeutic environment. The token economy also really helped staff manage behavior more effectively and consistently. Instead of relying on punishment or coercion, staff could focus on reinforcing desirable behaviors, which contributed to a more positive and supportive atmosphere in the facility.
And the token economy, I assume, can be applied to any setting in which you want to affect behavioral change through reinforcing desired behavior. Is that correct?
Yes, right. The beauty of the token economy is its versatility. It can be tailored to fit different environments and populations, from classrooms to workplaces to therapeutic settings. It's essentially a way to make reinforcement more manageable and consistent, which is key to effective behavior modification. One important aspect to remember is that the system needs to be fair and transparent. The rules for earning and exchanging tokens should be clear to everyone involved, and the rewards should be genuinely motivating.
Well, wouldn't getting paid at a job sort of be an example of a token economy? I mean, you're getting rewarded with money for doing something you're supposed to do. A desired work-related behavior, so to speak.
You're absolutely right. The concept of getting paid for work can indeed be seen as a form of a token economy. Just like in a token economy, where tokens can be exchanged for primary reinforcers, money can be used to purchase goods, services, or even experiences that provide satisfaction and fulfillment. But it's important to remember that in a clinical setting or a controlled setting like a classroom, the reinforcement system is designed to be highly structured and immediate. The rules for earning and exchanging tokens are typically clear and transparent, and the reinforcers are often closely tied to the individual's preferences and immediate context. The goal is often to shape behavior based on immediate feedback.
I see. A paycheck could come every 2 weeks or some other interval, so I suppose there needs to be some understanding around delayed gratification.
That's right, but the underlying behavioral principles are the same. Both systems rely on the idea that behavior can be influenced and shaped by systematically applying reinforcement.
Dr. Skinner, you've written many books and articles on the subject of your principles of radical behaviorism. And in particular, Walden Two and Beyond Freedom are sort of classic, well-known works of yours. Tell us first a bit about Walden Two. What was the inspiration for this?
Walden Two, yes, I wrote it in the aftermath of World War II, which was a time when people were searching for new ways of living and organizing society. The horrors and destruction of the war left many people questioning the existing social structures and looking for alternatives that could promote peace, happiness, and stability.
So was Walden Two sort of a utopian answer to Nazi Germany?
In a way, yes, you could say that Walden Two was partly a response to the horrors and failures of Nazi Germany, though its inspiration was broader than that. The devastation and moral crises brought about by War II certainly highlighted the urgent need for new ways of organizing society. People were grappling with how to prevent such atrocities in the future and seeking models for peaceful, effective, and just societies.
Tell us a little more about the novel. What were you trying to accomplish with it?
Walden Two was my attempt to envision a society based on the principles of behavioral science, where human behavior could be shaped in ways that promote the common good rather than destructive ends. It was about creating an environment where positive behaviors are reinforced, where cooperation replaces competition, and where individual and collective well-being are the primary goals. The idea was to design a community that minimizes the potential for the kind of authoritarian control and brutality seen in Nazi Germany by fostering an environment where pro-social behaviors are encouraged and reinforced. In Walden Two, the focus is on creating a balanced, harmonious society through the application of behavioral principles. But it's important to note that Walden Two wasn't just a reaction to the specific horrors of Nazi Germany. It was also a broader critique of societal structures that lead to war, inequality, and unhappiness. It proposed a different way of living that could theoretically address these issues at their roots. By applying the principles of behaviorism, we could potentially create societies that are more peaceful, fair, and conducive to human flourishing.
There are some interesting ways in which you depict your behaviorist principles in Walden Two, such as the focus on positive reinforcement.
Yes, the members of the society focused on rewarding actions that benefit the community, such as cooperation, hard work, and creativity. Also, when conflicts arise, they are addressed through mediated discussions rather than punitive measures. The community uses behaviorist principles to understand the causes of conflict and to shape behaviors that lead to peaceful resolutions.
And what about behavioral engineering?
The community in Walden Two is designed to shape behaviors through its environment. For instance, children are raised in communal nurseries where their behaviors are systematically reinforced to promote independence, cooperation, and problem-solving skills. This environment helps shape their behaviors from a young age to align with the community's values.
And there is a focus on minimizing competition, correct?
Yes, unlike many societies that emphasize competition, Walden Two minimizes it. Jobs are assigned based on interest and aptitude rather than competition. This approach aims to reduce stress and conflict, fostering a more collaborative and harmonious environment. The society also places a strong emphasis on cultural and leisure activities and places importance on living a balanced life. This is achieved through fair rewards, through a credit system that rewards people equally for their contributions.
How was Walden Two generally received?
Walden Two definitely stirred up a range of reactions, as any ambitious social experiment tends to do. Some hailed it as a visionary blueprint for a more rational and harmonious society, embracing the idea that behavior could be intentionally shaped to create better communities. They saw it as a hopeful alternative to the chaos and inequality prevalent in many societies. Of course, there were skeptics and critics too. Some found the idea of a behaviorally engineered society unsettling, questioning whether such a community could truly respect individual freedom and diversity of thought. Others were skeptical of the practicality of implementing such ideas on a larger scale beyond a fictional narrative. Personally, I was pleased that Walden Two sparked such discussions and debates. It was never meant to be a definitive solution, but rather a thought experiment, a way to provoke thinking about how we structure our societies and what role behavioral principles could play in improving them. The varied responses only highlighted the complexity and importance of these questions about human nature and social organization.
Would you live in Walden Two if it were a real place?
Yes, indeed I would. I think it would be a very nice place to live.
How about Beyond Freedom? What can you tell us about this book that you wrote?
Beyond Freedom was another exploration into the implications of behaviorism, but this time focused more explicitly on the philosophical and ethical dimensions. In this book, I delved deeper into the concepts of determinism, free will, and the implications of understanding human behavior through a scientific lens.
Yes, tell me a bit about your thoughts on free will, which you explore in this book. I know the concepts of free will versus determinism have stirred up quite a controversy regarding your theories and writings.
One of the central themes in Beyond Freedom is the idea that traditional notions of freedom and free will may need to be reconsidered in light of scientific findings about human behavior. I argued that while our actions are indeed influenced by environmental and biological factors, this understanding does not negate the possibility of personal responsibility or agency. Instead, it suggests that our choices are shaped by a complex interplay of internal and external influences.
So do you believe that free will doesn't really exist?
From a behaviorist perspective, our actions are shaped by a multitude of factors. Our genetics, past experiences, and current environment, all interacting to influence our choices. This understanding does not necessarily mean that free will doesn't exist in any form. Rather, it suggests that our decisions are constrained and influenced by these factors, even if we may not always be consciously aware of all the influences at play. We still make choices and decisions, but these choices are not entirely free from the context in which they arise. For me, the focus has been more on understanding how behavior is shaped and how we can use this knowledge to promote positive change in individuals and society. By acknowledging the influences on behavior, we can work towards creating environments that support healthier, more ethical, and more fulfilling lives for everyone.
Dr. Skinner, do you have any thoughts or advice for people who are looking to create meaningful and fulfilling lives for themselves by applying some of your lessons from radical behaviorism?
Sure, I can think of a few helpful ideas. Firstly, recognize that your behaviors are not just random actions, but are influenced by the consequences they produce. This means being mindful of the choices you make and how they contribute to your long-term goals and well-being. Secondly, set clear and achievable goals for yourself. Use the principles of reinforcement to your advantage by identifying positive behaviors that will bring you closer to your goals and rewarding yourself when you achieve them. This could be as simple as acknowledging your progress or treating yourself for a job well done. Thirdly, cultivate an environment that supports your growth and development. Surround yourself with people who encourage and reinforce the behaviors you want to see in yourself. Seek out opportunities for learning and personal improvement that align with your values and aspirations. Lastly, be patient with yourself and embrace the process of continuous learning and adaptation. Behavior is dynamic, and what works for you today may need adjustments tomorrow. Stay open to feedback, both from yourself and others, and be willing to experiment with different strategies to see what brings you the most fulfillment. Ultimately, radical behaviorism isn't just a theory. It's a practical approach to understanding and shaping behavior to create the kind of life you want to live. By applying these principles thoughtfully and consistently, you can take an active role in creating a meaningful and fulfilling life for yourself.
Dr. Skinner, it's been quite an interesting conversation with you, and I appreciate your thoughts in describing radical behaviorism and the theories that you have developed from this. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
I would say, in reflecting on our discussion about radical behaviorism and its implications, one crucial takeaway is the power of environmental design. We often underestimate how much our behavior is shaped by the environments we inhabit, whether it's our homes, schools, workplaces, or communities. My final thought would be to consider how we can intentionally design environments that foster positive behaviors and support our goals and values. By understanding the principles of reinforcement and shaping, we can create surroundings that encourage learning, cooperation, empathy, and personal growth. So, as you move forward, whether in your studies, work, or personal life, think about how you can shape your environment to bring out the best in yourself and others. It's not just about changing individual behaviors, but creating environments that make the right behaviors easier and more rewarding. This approach holds immense potential for creating meaningful and fulfilling lives, both for ourselves and for those around us.
Dr. Skinner, thank you so much for joining me today on Mind Tricks Radio. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mind Tricks Radio. I hope you have enjoyed the program. For more information about Mind Tricks, please go to my website, www.waikikihealth.com. Please be sure to subscribe to Mind Tricks podcast and accompanying blog to be notified of new episodes of Mind Tricks. Please be sure to follow Mind Tricks on Facebook by following and liking posts by myself, your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan.